Mm-hmm.
All right.
We're good.
Yep. I'm good to go.
Go for it.
All righty. Execute episode 66. What happens when you rip out all of the foreground of a traditional film? That's to say, the actors, characterization, the plot, and the story, and make the background of the subject of your work pointing a spotlight at the things we've grown too accustomed to notice. Godfrey Reggios said just that, and did just that. And you have to see it to understand it. Now, I wanted to approach this intro in the style of this film, so buckle in. Trees swaying in the breeze, waves rolling on the ocean, sun beaming through car window. I am K. Like boxes being built, fire burning in a parking lot, a moose on the loose, feet on the ground. Naff.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Marquee signs. Sorry.
I feel like I should be complimenting this with some Phillip Glass music. Hold on one second. Will this banjo suffice?
Oh, Jesus Christ. You have a banjo at the ready?
Needs to be tuned. It hasn't been played in months.
Just like the movie.
There we are. All right. Marquee signs blaring. Sirens wailing. Klaxons klaxoning. Hand clapping. Hummingbirds eating the shit out of a flower. Parks. VR tour.
Oh my god, I just got that.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait. Yeah, after you said you got it, I was like, there's something to get here, and I got it.
Hold on,
It's like, do I not understand the hidden meaning of my own channel name?
Like auteur, but like auteur.
That never clicked with me ever. I was just like, oh, that's a cool name.
Didn't until I said it either. So.
Me neither.
And it's like,
no, I knew. I just didn't not present.
See, that's what you have to own. You have to be the filmmaker that goes, yes, that's exactly what I meant.
Exactly.
I wasn't panicking on the day. It's
that's
so
wild.
Parks is here, everybody.
Welcome back.
This is an insane intro that feels slightly anticlimactic, but I felt it was. It's one of those things when you see this movie, you understand it. You understand exactly what this whole thing is about. But our good friend Parks, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being back with us again after being a part of our 2001: A Space Odyssey episode, which was
hell nah.
Oh hell nah.
Yeah.
Oh hell.
Let's be correct. Again, another moment of I get it. And it's now as a reminder, you can find One with the Films on any podcasting platform of your choice, as well as live and on demand right here and right now. And if you are listening in the live chat, please feel free to join in the conversation. We always love to hear from you. And if you're listening on demand, don't worry, we still love you too. Just again, little less, but we still love you. And that's we just like to be honest, and these people just showed up. So here we are. Now, that being said, Naf, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what we're doing today?
Well, for sure. I will absolutely do just that. Not in any artful manner, just in script reading. So I'm not as cool as what's his name? Reggio George? What a name. Oh, Godfrey Reggio. My bad.
I was about to say
it sounds like a musician.
Guys,
what's the one Daft
part
Punk,
of the culture club?
The guy in Daft Punk, Giorgio. Yeah, that guy. Like that's basically his name.
Punk.
Yeah, literally. My God. Well, welcome, guys. And we're here for an episode of the Weekly Watch List, baby. So the Weekly Watch List is what happens when a bunch of friends with unique and wonderful taste in films have tried too hard for too long to finally share and discuss their favorite films with one another. So if you've been around for a while, you already know the shtick. However, for the uninitiated, the idea is that for every episode, at least one person is watching that chosen film for the first time. It's all about having a space for creators to share the art that matters most to them and give them a platform to show us all why. So if you guys like listening to a bunch of nerds geek out and force each other to watch and discuss their favorite films for the very first time, you can feel free to follow and subscribe. You can send us to your friends, and if you like, you can activate notifications so you never miss a new episode. And of course, run all your favorite socials as well. Check out the links in the description below. So, Parks, Artur, you brought this film to us. It's your film this week.
Yes.
So tell me, what is this brilliant film that not enough people have seen?
Wow. Well, this is Koyaanisqatsi, a non-narrative documentary directed by. Why did I forget his name
George.
already? I was like, that's what was in my head, and I'm like, don't say Reggio.
It sounds right.
The man has got two last names, you know.
I understand that on a deep level, and that's the case.
Exactly.
Godfrey Reggios, right?
Yeah.
Godfrey Reggios. Okay, we got that down for the record. Godfrey Reggios.
That's what I said. Sure.
Yes,
yes.
We're going with that. Listen, if I'm wrong, it's because of you. So
that works. I'll take it.
Now you know how I feel every week.
Yeah. He takes the blame.
Just say it with enough confidence, people believe you.
That's it, baby.
There you go. That's one with the films. Anyway, I saw this. I first saw this movie in college for one of my film classes. It's a very very film school artsy, like look at this and think about it type movie. But I remember watching it for the first time and going, man, I have never seen anything like this before in my life. Because you hear the words non-narrative documentary and you think, okay, maybe it's like a nature. I'm thinking like a nature documentary where you're just seeing shots of, I don't know, you're just seeing a montage of stuff, like thinking about it in very simplistic terms. But this film really is just like a powerhouse of combining a few things together, just like a few elements of filmmaking. I mean, you set it up top, Keegan, of just like, let's take away all the things in the foreground of most movies, and what you're left with is this. And by just really honing in on those few things, you get something that like is so transcendent and so like captivating. And I think where this began for getting it on the show and bringing it on the show was when I was on for 2001: A Space Odyssey, and this was in my cinema a la carte at the end, and I was kind of surprised at first to hear, like, as I was describing it, you guys were like, what's that? Let's talk about that next. And in my head, I was thinking about this movie. I was like, oh boy, I don't know. Based on what, like, specifically, Keegan, what you said about 2001, I was like, man, I don't know if this will be his jam. Because there's, like, I remember you saying how it was kind of hard to stay awake during parts of 2001. I'm like, man.
I mean, but that's not a great threshold for me in general. But that's like, but you are correct, and it was a thing that when I was hearing about it, I was thinking the same thing. Is it going to work?
And in my own head, when I watched the film, and we were talking about this a bit before we started, you know, we all lead busy lives here. I only really got to rewatch this tonight. And after a long work day, and I was sitting down and going, am I going to fall asleep watching this? Because I just remember from college, it was just so long ago. Like it was different then.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I mean, my heart was racing watching parts of this, and I was breathless at parts of this. It's something really, really special. And I'm very glad to have brought it to y'all today.
Yeah. Well, Naf, going off of that, I think that you and I are probably in a similar boat with what we knew about this film going into it. But because I know I certainly only found out about it because of your cinema a la carte. So I had to remind myself what film it even was when I was like trying to discuss with you about you coming on. I was like, which one was this? And then I was just trying to plug it in and praying to God it was on Apple like iTunes and just being like, okay, like please be on this.
Yeah, totally.
But Naf, how about you?
Yeah, so the first time hearing about it was exactly the same. It was on the podcast, and I remember you saying the name and me trying to type it on my phone to find it in Letterboxd, and I couldn't. And then in the end, I found it and added it to my watch list, and I intentionally went nowhere near it and looked nothing at it. I knew Keegan was taking his flight back from New York, so I was like, hey, here's a reminder, watch this film on the flight because you're not going to have more time. So like do it. So I told him.
Whoa.
And I did.
I
what
told
a crazy
him,
place to watch this particular movie.
You are correct.
You're sitting there just like, am I going to die? Like,
Yeah, kind of. It was a moment of being like, oh, that's a, huh. Just,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So
It's
yeah.
yeah, look, so I got him to watch that, and then I hadn't had a chance to watch it yet, and we caught up last night, did a bit of writing session, and we were writing, and I was like, I'm gonna watch it like after writing today, and he's like, look, I don't want to prime you at all, like I don't know, like we're gonna talk about this, and I was like, okay, cool. So at the same point, I still didn't know what I was getting into, and I ended up putting it on this morning when I woke up. Put it on, and I start watching it. I'm like, this is a really cool intro. And then I was like, I'm confused because
it's not an intro.
It's like I don't know what I'm experiencing now. Usually I'm going into something blind and it works for me. And like right now I'm too caught up in what am I watching. So like I need to pause this for a second. I paused it. I went and did a little read of the blurb, and it was like, non-narrative this, and I was like, okay, I'm good. I'm sat. So I sat back down. I went back a couple of minutes. And I watched from start to finish, and boy, oh boy, Keegan was asking a question earlier. Who was this made for? Me. Me is who this was made for.
Let's go.
You fucking broke me twice, Parks. Twice.
Listen, there was no doubt in my mind that I was like, yeah, Naf is gonna love this shit. And I was just,
hell yeah.
Listen, spoiler alert, I really did enjoy this too. I think it's and I have a lot of comments about it because it goes into a different type of art for me. Which is a type of art I do enjoy, but it's always like I don't know, it's a tough thing with the film aspect because I think film can often become much more of a beautifully connecting populist and artist to be able to do, like, it's a weird thing that can kind of be like highbrow but appeal to the for lack of a better phrase, the masses and things there. This, and I will get into it as one of my topics, which is this film I consider to be in the same category I put modern art.
Yeah.
Like kind of where it's the goal of this piece. This exactly, and that's what I think is so beautiful about it, which is part of, again, we're going to go get into it, but part of the reason that I have my theories. But before we get fully into everything, I think Neff, you have some fun facts for us.
Yes, I do. I do have some fun facts. Let me give you this fun factical. On a $2.5 million budget, it became the second highest grossing documentary of the 80s. It's the directorial debut and first in the trilogy of experimental film documentaries by visionary Godfrey Reggios, not Reggio George, with cinematography by Ron Frick, who also co-edited the film with Alton Walpole, with an encapsulating score by Phillip Glass. Now, the title for the film is taken from the Hopi language and is defined as meaning life out of balance. This is the highest rated film in the trilogy, with an 8.2 out of 10 on IMDb and a 4.3 out of 5 on Letterboxd. Now, it actually took a while for the director to convince Glass to do the music. He actually, Philip Glass told Reggio multiple times he doesn't do film music, but he kept pushing. And when he presented a photo montage together with some of Glass's music to him in a private screening, then Glass was like, I see what you're cooking here.
Let me cook.
I think I can do this.
Let him cook.
So the score took over 3 years to finalize. It continuously evolved and evolved. And Glass divided the film into 12 individual sections, and he wrote music for each section of the film. When the director heard the music, he was like, Mr. Phillip, you've gone too far. I need to reassemble my entire film. And so what he did was...
Oh, wow.
He Ryan Johnson this bitch, and now that the music was done, all of the film, all of the editing came to the music as opposed to the other way around. Because the way that he was doing this is he was basically had a cut of the film. On the Criterion Collection DVD, there's a silent version of the film that you can just watch from start to finish. And he would effectively present that to the composers and go, okay, here, now play me, how did it feel? Play me something. And that's how we got here. So
Love
yeah,
that.
he ended up reassembling the film and cutting to the feel of the music as opposed to like where the story was. So this film was actually made with some guidance by executive producer Francis Ford Coppola. The follow-up in 1988 got the same treatment from George Lucas, and the final film, which came out in the early 2000s, had that same treatment from Steven Soderbergh. It features a bit of stock footage in it as well, naturally. A lot of it is from Soviet military operations, historical archives, newsreels, that kind of stuff. But it's actually also some leftover footage from The Shining in there. That footage also appeared in the theatrical ending of Blade Runner. The film is part of the Criterion Collection, exists on multiple films to see before you die lists, and asks a lot of questions while not saying a single word. Well, I mean, in the script, right? Not in the score.
There's one word in this movie.
Koyaanisqatsi. But it is a spectacular, visionary masterpiece.
And not to be confused with the opening of Dune. And it's
Bloom. Sorry.
I did question whether or not I was watching the right movie. I was like, Dune, but now
is this the NAF cut?
There was a shot of sand dunes that was like that's from Dune.
That's it.
And I went, yep. I just now where's Zendaya just talking over it? And
I'm just imagining
they could have cut that in there. Just I don't know. I wouldn't have blinked. I'd have been like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
Right. I didn't blink anyway.
Most movies, if you just cut Zendaya in, regardless. But, you know.
Challenges, baby. Movie of the year. Movie of the year.
Something about this feels right. It's I watched that. I also watched that on the plane. And that made for a weird pairing. I'll tell you that.
I don't know what I'm feeling right now.
Talk about a 180, and it was but nonetheless, going further before we go any further, and I'm sure all of you understand that this movie heavily rides on spoilers. So just understand this. All of these conversations are certainly not spoiler free. We're not necessarily doing a play-by-play, although the play-by-play would make as much sense as my intro. But we're talking about a film with the expectation that you've already seen it, though it's always cool to go and watch the film, check back later. But even if you haven't seen the film, chances are we'll convince you to finally make that leap. And if you want to know what film to watch in advance, you can come prepared for next week. You can just watch us and wait till the end. You know, we have links in the descriptions below and for all our socials, so you can just, check us out.
Hell yeah. So yeah, this is probably the time where talking a spoiler alert is probably the least necessary ever for this film. It is, as we said at the start, right? Like he's removed all of the actors, the characterization, the plot, the story. Like the subject is the background. A lot of how they talk about the film has to do with it's showing you things you've kind of always looked at but never seen. You know what I'm saying? I was cooking there. So a really good place for us to start is the director, Godfrey Reggios, says that the meaning behind the film will be different to every person that watches it. He said in one of the featurettes that's on the Criterion DVD, he says something to the tune of like, some people will watch this and they'll take away that it's an environmental film. Some people will watch this and take away that it's like a humanitarian film, or that it's shitting on technology, or it's for technology, or some people will just watch it and think it's a piece of shit. And he's like, it doesn't matter. It's like, what did you think? What was your interpretation? Now, I'd love to start with yours, Parks. You've obviously seen this film a couple of times, and you've brought this to us, so there's some meaning behind this for you, or a reason for us to see it. What's your take on this? What is this trying to tell us?
Yeah, totally. I mean, first off, just quickly adding on to what you mentioned there about Godfrey Reggios saying how he wanted the viewer to kind of get out their own interpretation from this thing. He didn't, wasn't necessarily a particular message he was trying to convey.
Yeah.
To me, that feels that then also connects to what you said, Keegan, about this aspect of modern art, where I feel like this movie is more about the viewer watching it than it is like the movie itself. Like it reflects how you feel about the movie. Well, obviously is how you feel about the movie, but it reflects the movie is what is reflected in you watching it. Not to get too many layers here deep, but I mean, for me, it's going off of that angle. Then I think for me, the most meaningful interpretation of this film is maybe our ability to find beauty in even the most in any situation, even the most unnatural and blasphemous and destructive things. Because you start out this film with all these very peaceful nature shots. That's where you get like the nature kind of documentary type of feel in. And then in a way, the film introduces an antagonist, or at least that's what it feels like. It feels like a threat, and it's us. It's people. It's people and our big equipment and our heavy cranes and our darn tootin' explosives and nukes and our just capacity for destruction. And then we build up this world, and then we blow up this world, and then we build it again. And every time we build it again, it gets smaller and more complicated, and by the end we have microchips. And for the record, this film came out in like 1983. So this is kind of analyzing a trajectory that has gone on, that has since gone on over and over, and arguably faster and faster each time. Something that I feel these crazy time lapses that you see kind of like throughout the film really emphasize, how you have like the free kind of flowing, like very natural movement of nature at the start. Humans come in, and the longer humans kind of get to operate in these once natural spaces, the faster the film gets and the more aggressive it gets in every sense of the word. The music, the editing, like we are an unnatural force against the natural world. And as I'm sitting there watching it, I am asking myself, like, if we're though we are antagonistic force, I cannot deny I do find something really beautiful about a lot of these shots of cars moving on a highway, or these city shots, even some of the explosions. There's something so captivating about that. And what struck me about that was me trying to answer why I was finding it beautiful, when maybe the answer to that was, well, that's just because I can find it beautiful. And I think that's so interesting, and maybe a bit of a problem, where I'm constantly desensitizing actual issues in front of me. And maybe that constant desensitization is preventing me from realizing how much the world is out of balance. And maybe we're all doing the same thing. So getting very heady, obviously, with the discussion, but that's really what I got out of this film this time. And definitely, I think the first time I saw it, it was much more of confusion and much more of just like, I'm so transfixed on this thing. And I definitely feel humanity's kind of a reverence to the world, the sort of takes on this film that have to do more with kind of like the environmental angle definitely felt very relevant, and especially in lieu of like climate change and stuff as we deal with it today. But today it's just what I find beautiful, even in the things that are just, I probably shouldn't, Yeah. So yeah, there you go.
Hell yeah.
No, I'm right. Yeah. Well, Neff, I'm very curious on your interpretation of the film as well.
I would love to go last.
Oh, okay.
So
listen, I'm not.
He's gonna go crazy, man.
I was also gonna go. Well, like, listen, I'm fine with talking.
Go.
So,
tell me.
all right. So my interpretation of the film, I would agree with you, Parks. Like, that was the craziest thing to me. Was, as you're saying, like, I had the exact same feeling watching it the first time, was being like, and it is a film that I think merits a lot of rewatches. I told Naff, I said, I think I know the movie I'm getting high to for the rest of my life. Like, because I feel like it is, but like, and like only in somewhat a joke, because I'm like, I do think that there actually is like a lot of, this movie stimulates the right parts of the brain to be able to be, as you said, Parks, it's a mirror movie. It's again, I think a lot of art is like, a lot of storytelling tends to be more so your feelings on a story that's presented to you. And then there are stories that occasionally come along, and it's not so much I think we've talked about some of them on this podcast. I can't think of like a good example, but there are a couple that are, this film is less of a statement and more of a mirror. Rather, it's not this story is not a painting, it's a mirror, is kind of how I look at it, where it's we're trying to show how you feel about this. And for me, that was a thing that I was feeling with it as I was watching it. And I think it definitely was a moment of going, okay, so this is going to be no dialogue throughout this entire thing, ain't it? But at the same time, I fell in love with that because it was allowing music in but also not in a way that like, oh, the music goes, oh, dun, 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 and shows humans coming over. It's like kind of just this neutral, beautifully neutral track. And I said it's the best screensaver I've ever seen. But no, but
I
but
saw
like,
a
obviously
review that was something like that. It's like, how did my Windows XP screensaver make me cry so much, man? I was like,
exactly, truly. But like that, there was a lot of beauty. Like I think that the thing about it was, I agree with you, Parks. That I was struck by. There was one shot particularly of a freeway that I feel like and I mean, I always get this feeling as well when I see those giant like freeways that like circle around and all the cars on there. And it did occur to me, I'm like, that is a magnificent creation that we have done.
Yeah.
Like as terrible as this is, it's like, it is a thing that you have to kind of wonder. It's like, yeah, the environmental aspects of this, absolutely, I agree. But I'm like, there is a moment that I look at you, I feel the same way where I'm like, but I think the film isn't anti-humanity either. I don't think the film, than that. I think it's a more nuanced discussion because I think there's also really, because even you're looking at that, the film's not painting it as, it's not focusing on the trash on the highway. It's focusing on the construction of this highway that you're seeing from a great view. And I don't know that shot, but then there was a lot of them that I really fucking loved, which was like the shots of people that just happen to like spike the lens of the camera and just are smiling. And it just was kind of that moment of being like, wow, that person is just going about their day. Like, I don't know, it kind of had an Andy Warhol kind of vibe to it in some moments that I really just was looking. And at the end of it, I walked away from, it's similar. Naf knows this, and I'll keep it to a minimum, but like that there's a world that I've been creating and that we're doing stuff with it. But it was kind of the inception of what that world was sort of always about, which was my writing challenge for writing this kind of fantasy world was, what if I took a thing where the things I love about this world are not a given? And maybe I can pay tribute to what I love about this world. And I think that that's what this film is doing, is this film is talking about humanity and the world as it is, but is being honest to that reality, where it's saying this film is not, again, as we said, it's not anti-humanity, it's not pro-humanity. It's saying humanity comes in multitudes, and it is a inherently contradictory existence. And I think that the film does that in a way that is like, kind of does it in almost the most objective way it can, which is by not saying a thing. It is just saying, you tell me. And that's and it's like, I'm showing you the works. You can determine for yourself if that's enough.
And in that way, if someone does see that film or see the movie, and as you said, the movie is saying, you tell me what you see, and that person goes, well, what are you trying to say? Humanity's bad? And it's like, well, again, not that it's showing you one thing or the other, but maybe that's something to think about. Maybe what this is showing is that you're uncomfortable with what you're seeing. And that is also something to unpack and unravel. Why is it making you uncomfortable? Because you feel guilty about some of the stuff humanity's doing, and or you feel like you much should. More on that. Right, exactly. So it's very multifaceted.
Yeah, I think
all right, Naf, hit us with the NAF core opinion.
It's not like that. It's not like that at all. But I think that you're really right. Yeah, because it's got so much of, like, it's like when you don't say anything at all, when somebody doesn't say anything at all you're left up to is like the interpretations of like kind of your own mind. It's like kind of like, if you feel like, let's say you feel like you made somebody mad, right? And you're getting the vibe that you made them mad, like another person, like a friend or something like that, or a partner. So you get the idea that your partner's mad at you, but they don't kind of like say, and you're kind of left up to like, wait, are they not? Is it this? Is that? And then kind of like everything that they do or see kind of like seem like a spiteful thing. Like, oh,
that's you with this movie.
It's like that is how people will react to things, right? It's like when you don't have the clarity or the understanding of what something is trying to tell you, what something is feeling, the only thing you have left is your own interpretation of what's happening. And one of the things that I really liked was when we get to the ending of the film, we get the title card and then we get the definition, right? And to read it out, like per the movie, it's Koyaanisqatsi from the Hopi language. And these are the 5 definitions of it. Crazy life, life in turmoil, life out of balance, life disintegrating, a state of life that calls for another way of living.
I love that that's how it ended. I love that you start with crazy life and then it ends with that. And it's almost like, it's kind of like the order of how you process it.
It is the journey that the film takes you on, right? There's also a choir singing towards the end, and they're singing Hopi prophecies. And those prophecies translated are, if we dig precious things from the land, we will invite disaster. Near the day of purification, there will be cobwebs spun back and forth in the sky. A container of ashes might one day be thrown from the sky, which could burn the land and boil the oceans. And then the credits start rolling, and that's the only time where like you have ambient sound. It's just like they put a microphone in the middle of just people walking around and doing some kind of sort of conversation. So like, it's just, that's where you kind of get to experience back to like kind of what normal is. But a lot of how I interpreted the film was like, I very much understood in the moment. I was like, this is a journey that I need to go on. And I wrote in my Letterboxd review, you know, this on psychedelics would be otherworldly.
I saw so many Reddit threads, by the way, when I was looking this up earlier. I was like, every Reddit thread I looked at about this movie, there was at least one person that was like, bro, watch it while you're high. Like that's another experience. It's like, I mean, very big in that culture.
Yep, and that's the thing. I'm like, I do intend to.
When I sat down to watch it this morning, like I said, I kind of paused for a minute. I was like, no, let me look this up a little bit, make sure that I kind of have my head screwed on straight. And then I was like, maybe I shouldn't have my head screwed on straight. And so like I actually went looking around my house and going like, what might we have around here? There was nothing. So
what might we have around here?
What might we have? We just have Advil PM. And that's
so like I felt very much like, again, the only dialogue that's here is the music. The music is what's telling you the story. It's what's taking you on the journey. It's like Phillip Glass is telling stories to the music. I love the contrasting shots of, like, there's a lot of the time that I was watching this where I was almost a little bit in opposite to what you were saying before, Kay, around how we see humanity and we see the beauty of the creation. I was like, yes, we see a lot of that. And then the scenes that stood out to me a lot were the scenes of like when everyone's crowded in the stock market and then there's a shot just after where there's slightly less people and there's rubbish everywhere in between them. And bits where we'd go, I see that beautiful creation, and then I see, oh, am I watching Steven Spielberg's West Side Story? No, it's just shots of buildings being like, you know, falling apart. So I had to to that vein. There are also moments in here where I'm going, am I watching The Last Jedi and Ryan Johnson's interpretation of the Force? Because you have these beautiful time lapses of nature and life and death and cycles and things renewing. I'm like, this is...
Nathan, you can't keep getting away with it.
I almost forgot how many bits you guys have in your episodes.
And with one fell swoop, he got them all. And that's what we have.
Yeah.
And that's our time. And that's no.
So there was so much of that, but the things that stood out to me the most were, yes, we have the capacity to create so much beauty and live in so much harmony with nature, yet we consistently make the decision to destroy.
Yeah.
That's where I ended up landing on. Like the second last line on my Letterboxd review for this is literally, are we not just parasites? You know, I'm looking at this, I'm going like,
that word was going through my head a lot while watching this.
The final shot of the film. Well, let me get this sorted out, okay? I'll come to you as well.
Oh yeah, sure.
But like the final shot of the film, and I love that this is something that came off your recommendation of 2001, Tupac's. Like I see the connection so much.
Yeah, 9/11.
It does tell the journey of what.
the explosion.
Oh.
And so like,
Oh my gosh.
I wasn't going to say anything. I was
2001.
like, that's a non sequitur, but maybe not. Where's he going?
That's one of our
Well, he was
bits.
saying
I'm
it's
kidding.
about
It's not one of our bits.
2001, and well, it's the end of the film, and it's a lot. It's a chaos. Yeah, absolutely. I see where you're
like
going
how
there
it
now.
starts in the past and then kind of moves to our future and then kind of moves beyond. And it goes, where are we going next? That's the question that 2001 asks, right? And even 2010.
A Space Odyssey, to clarify.
Correct.
To be to clarify, not the year.
Not the
Or
year.
for the audience.
Sorry, because clearly I was confused, and so just for those at home who likewise made my same logical jump.
So 2001, A Space Odyssey. The way it ends is asking you a question of like, where do we kind of go from here? Like, what's the next stage?
What happens next?
And 2010, the year we made contact, expands on that, and the ending of that even more so is, oh, what are we gonna do next? And I feel like this movie sort of starts to present that question, and the last shot talks to me and says to me, yeah, this is the next frontier, but this is what you're gonna do to it. This is how it's gonna go for you, because this is what you do everywhere you go. I left this film going, this was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. We don't deserve this planet. We are part of the machine. Like, it's going, here's nature, and look at how like these little ants go through these little termite hill and stuff, and everything is like there, and we try and separate ourselves from it. But when you pull the camera back and watch from a distance, we're just another piece of the system. It really stuck with me, the thought that I was like, I believe that I'm experiencing a view and a perspective of the human race right now that, like, this is how God views us, or this is how people millennia from now, or otherworldly interdimensional beings that look back at us or view us now from a perspective we can't see. This is how they see us. Like, we are so small. We're so small. That was my take.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Awesome.
I guess and listen, truly enough, like, I think that it makes a lot of sense, and I do think that the movie does leave you with, again, I love that last line of, it's a way of life in need of change. I like that, or like a way like that shows us that there is a different way to live.
Yeah.
And I think that is the constant human experience. And I guess I just always, and maybe it's because due to my inclination towards depression and anxiety and things like that, I know, crazy, but it's
very supportive environment we have here.
It's another one of our bits.
Hey, shut the fuck up, Parks. Listen, that's my best friend you're talking about. Wow. Like, it's that thing of just like when best friends, it's like they'll absolutely shit on each other, then somebody's like, oh, I'll join in, and then you're like, no. And you're just like,
you don't get it.
You don't understand the nuances of this dynamic, except everybody does. They've listened to us for 66 episodes. There is absolutely a consistency.
Also, fuck him.
Exactly. I will take a bullet for this man, but I'd also shoot it. And so, I'd take the bullet that I would fire from the gun. And so now, anyway, point being is that I think that because of my inclination towards depression, I think that I've spent a lot of my life thinking about the optimism of the world and the idea of the brighter horizon, because I think that if you resign yourself to, we are a parasitic plague upon this planet, and that is all we have meant to be, then why continue? Like, to me, it's that thing of like why I don't like bleak movies and why I don't like things that don't, not that you have to suggest a solution, because I also believe I worked at a Tupac museum for a bit, and there was a line on the wall that I really loved, which was Tupac saying, I may not be the smartest guy in the room, I may not have all the solutions, but if I keep saying how dirty the streets are, somebody's going to clean them. And I think that there is a job of artists where that is the thing, where we may not be the people with the solution, but we do need to identify the problem. But I also believe that you have an obligation not to make people despair at the problem. Like, because I think that if all we do is walk away from this film with a sense of, oh, well, humanity sucks, I think that you're limiting the nuance of this conversation. Because I think that, because in the same point, Naf, you brought up termites. You can argue termites destroy the environment. Termites have a parasitic relationship with trees, but we don't hold that same contempt for a termite. you know?
I mean, you say
And-
that,
and-
yet like I have people come out to my house every year to top up my anti-termite chemicals
Absolutely.
outside
Well,
the
we want to
house.
get rid of them because they're bugs and they're
House out of
stupid and they don't
balance.
belong
Suck.
here. Exactly.
House out of balance.
Listen, you got to establish dominance, and that's in the food chain here. And so, but at the same time, like, but more to the point, I think that with the humanity aspect of this movie, it kind of shows us the capacity, right?
Yeah.
The capacity for greatness and what we choose to use it on. And I think it's this idea of clearly we are capable of going to space. We are clearly capable of these things. Why not apply to these things to the world that we live in? Because I think also, again, the fact that it comes from Hopi language and it comes from these things, there are a lot of tribes and a lot of beautiful cultures that are about living with the land. And I would put, because a lot of those cultures did have that mentality, and before, again, a lot of horrible genocide and cultural just absolute eradication like took over, a lot of the mentality was live with the land. And I think that just mentality has just changed. And we have erased it. Now, I do believe that there is a resurgence of that mentality. And I think that is kind of this idea of what this kind of art is for, right? And so going with that, one thing I want to ask you both with regards to in Parks, I am curious to know if you have anything to say on that aspect and the art, like kind of how art is used and what art can do. And there was a question you brought up off mic that I also want to get to, which is about the score, which was, does the score save the movie? Does it make the movie? Does it, depending on how you see it, like how does the score factor into this entire story? And I want to turn it over to you because I want to know if you have any thoughts about, kind of the obviously this movie can be very existentially dreading, but also I think it can have positive, beautiful moments. And I'm curious to know within your own self, like how you feel this plays into art, how that plays into the score, how that kind of does that. I really would love to know your thoughts.
Wow. Yeah. No, that's a big question, but to kind of break it down and different elements there. I mean, yeah, I guess, I mean, to start with the score, because I feel like that will kind of lead into answering a lot of these bigger questions. I mean, the score for this film is powerful. I think when I first recommended this film to you guys, I said it had one of the best film scores of all time. And learning that it took 3 years is obviously, is like a shocking thing to hear, but also comes by no surprise because it is incredible. It kind of amplifies every feeling and manages to kind of oscillate between so many different intense feelings, which, in turn kind of amplifies the kind of reflexive aspect of the movie. Like the music is amplifying the film's ability to reflect back on you. And just obviously as well, watching this movie, I'm maybe not for you guys necessarily, but I was able to appreciate how many times the score has been referenced in other movies and shows and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this one, for any Star Wars sickos out there, there is an episode of Star Wars Rebels where they're going into the nebula. This is like Zeb's episode where they're going to find his world. If you re-listen to that track, 1000% Kevin Kiner had I think it was Pruitt Ego. That's the track from this movie that you'll see referenced the most in other media. Had it as like a temp track during that episode. It's pretty awesome. And then I think Stranger Things also used it at a really cool bit for, but yeah, it's just been used everywhere. But yeah, knowing that it's amplifying all these emotions, and it's kind of facilitating this conversation, amplifying these feelings. I love that Tupac quote you brought up, Keegan, and I think for a movie like this, like I'm totally with you in a lot of those ideas, in that it's important in order for this conversation to happen, we need to kind of be honest with ourselves first, and yeah, you can't totally lean into the cynical point of view, and you can't look at the blindly optimistic point of view. Absolutely. It is definitely one of like, holy shit, humans are fucking amazing. Like, we are incredible. And kind of circling back on those moments you mentioned where it's just these kind of vignettes of people, whether they're walking down the street or they're looking directly at the camera for long periods of time. I love where the film has those positioned, because they're kind of like a little bit further into the film after you've kind of maybe grasped some notions, and maybe right around when you're kind of wrapping your mind around this idea of like, well, maybe I can't completely condemn humans because I'm finding awe in a lot of this. And then you're seeing those moments and you're going, yeah, like there's just something so miraculous about people and all of this. So you need to have that. You need to have that honesty there, and be able to amplify the audience's like kind of emotional connection to that in order to even have that conversation. I do feel like I'm rambling at this point, but
no, I think that it's beautiful.
Man, we literally sit and watch like hours and hours of your video documentaries collectively between the two of us. Yeah, like
I know
all that watch
those
time on your
are
channel. Like, no,
those are really well organized thoughts that I spend a lot of time scrutinizing versus now where I'm out of my element.
Where it's not, where it's just this is our tour raw right now. Right, this is like, raw material.
You can see the lights. You can see all of the like the stage behind me is falling down. You can see
the man behind the curtain.
Yeah, that's the phrase I was looking for. If I had more time to think about it, I would have said that. But
and that's why I just got the jukebox up here. While you were saying very powerful things, I was thinking, what's a reference I can make? And so, but nonetheless, yeah, exactly. That's why it all works. And Neff, I'm curious with your musically sound mind to it. I'm kind of curious on your thoughts on the music as well and how that plays in. Obviously, Phillip Glass being an incredible musician and lending his talents to something like this is such an incredible thing as to begin with. And I want to know just what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, I mean, so funnily enough, I'd heard the name before. And I feel like a lot of people probably that if they go to school and stuff in music, I'm sure they would hear it a lot, right? And I didn't do any of that. Like, I studied music in school and did some composition courses after, but like nothing crazy. But like my music teacher in year 11 and 12 had been classically trained, and he showed us some of Philip Glass's music. And I remember what it was at the time, but I remember listening to it and being like, this is really weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Not my thing. People who like classical music suck.
Yeah,
my uneducated mind. But this film, as Parks was saying before, you can see where so many things that came after this take inspiration from this film score. And hearing that, or learning that Philip Glass doesn't do film scores, or hadn't to that point, and actually looking at some stuff recently when I was looking through his IMDb page and going, like, since this, he's actually done more for film and TV. He did the score for, I think, The Fall of the House of Usher last year or the year before.
Wow.
Like, I saw that on there. Sorry, that's Philip Glass. Sorry, give me one sec. That point that I mentioned wasn't, but I was actually looking up his thing to show more of the stuff that he had done. There he is. Yeah, but he's gone on to work on more and more things that I just didn't expect. And seeing things like, for example, Oppenheimer last year. I feel like Ludwig van Göransson.
Oh my God,
so
great
much.
connection.
And the crazy thing is, this connection came when you were talking about it before. Like, it actually just clicked. As you were talking about the score and talking about it in like Rebels and where it popped up in other places, literally a little tickle in the back of my mind was like the atoms moving around, and like the changing.
Can you hear the music? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh my God. Yes.
It's like, yeah, for sure. I did have that thought while filming, and I did take some notes, but I totally forgot to jot that down. But it is a great connection. It is, and this film has a lot of like imagery of like thermonuclear missiles going off. So it's like,
yeah,
there is honestly would not be a terrible double feature with Oppenheimer.
Well, because I do think that the ending of Oppenheimer, like that line at the end of "I think we did," is very much akin to what I feel with this sort of story. And Parks, you kind of brought up to, I guess, kind of wrapping out to like final points. There was a great question that you wanted to bring up, which was if this film was made now, like this, which is crazy as it is that this film is as modern as it is. By the way, side tangent, it occurred to me while I was watching it where I was like, okay, in my head, my 2024 mind goes, oh, you're putting a little camera on this conveyor belt doing this. And then I'm remembering, this camera was big. Like when they were making this movie, and I'm like, they just strapped
not a hot
this
dog.
bitch. Like that's now like a hot dog machine. And I'm just like, well, there we are. And I'm like, yeah, like it occurred to me, I was like, oh, yeah, they don't have like drones that they can just go and fly around over there. Like that's a helicopter, bitch. That's like they're going up there with this kind of stuff. And I'm like, wow, that's actually like this isn't a GoPro. This is actually like really, this is much more impressive. Like anyway, but
even against like when it's mounted on a plane and stuff as well, and you're kind of like, we're talking about like Nolan before, and like I imagine the shots of the IMAX cameras on the outside of the fighter planes they did for Dunkirk, and it's like, okay, that wild, but we'd be at that level back then with cameras that aren't equipped to probably be up there.
Oh, for sure. But to that end, you asked what would this film be like if it existed now? Like if it was made now with the same intentions, same idea, what would exist now? And how do you see that? How do you see that as like kind of your own opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, I put this question forward because even trying to answer it kind of scared me because I feel like we live in a time that is surrounded by so much doom and gloom. I mean, doom and gloom is probably like there at most moments of humanity for the last 100 years, if not longer. I mean, just in general, like the human experience of like, man, things are the worst they've ever been right now. Obviously, though, now we have a lot more insight about our world and so many things about our world than we ever have before in the history of humanity. And so I'd like to think there's a little bit more reasoning behind our doom and gloom than there's ever been.
Yeah.
And a lot of the themes, again, it speaks to what's so marvelous about this film on different levels. The the Hopi language of these prophecies at the end. All these sort of ideas that aren't necessarily exclusive to that culture, but are said so perfectly and succinctly there. And then maybe this film being such a definitive statement on like the environmental aspect, how maybe like the greatest threat of our time is arguably like the climate crisis. And it's I mean, was something that was really only like developed and being discussed in a theoretical way in the 80s, to my knowledge. And now today it is, it's like standard science. Like this is happening and things are accelerating at a very concerning level. And part of my first thought is you make Koyaanisqatsi today, I don't think you have as neutral of a tone as this film does. I think it's much more demanding of action because I don't know if you can afford. I don't know how many filmmakers would be comfortable with being totally neutral and going, hey, the audience can interpret what they want, and would be much more inclined. I feel like a lot of filmmakers today would be much more inclined to go, no, this is what needs to happen. This is the action we need to take. There's a demand for action more than ever. Whereas before there was maybe only concern. And so
that's a good way of saying it.
So, yeah. And if everything kind of feeds specifically back into the climate aspect, that, I mean, naturally extends to so many different versions of what we already saw in the film. With technology, I mean, smartphones, I imagine, would be a big focus. There was already some stuff about screens in the film with TVs and whatnot, but you take that to the umpteenth level and the 2024 Koyaanisqatsi, it would just, I mean, it's like all consuming. Same thing with artificial intelligence. That would kind of be your data chip moment at the end. This idea of humans building tools so they can build more things with those tools. Now we're building things that can replace us. There's just so many different like things that have evolved over the last 40 years, the principles of those issues remain the same. And I just don't know if they presented as neutrally. So handing that off to, I assume, Naf, who, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that, to your point, the creators, I think, know and feel this. Like, I'm not sure. Have you actually seen the two films that followed this, Sparks?
I have not, and I actually today learned they existed for the first time. Not on the podcast, thankfully. I'm not. I learned about it, but I learned about it on Amazon Prime when I saw them recommended, and I was like, oh, okay, okay, cool.
Yeah,
it's like, all right.
I haven't had a chance to watch those yet. I didn't get to do like what I did with 2010 and come here with more context, but I did look at what the translations were of those titles, because the follow-up to this is called Koyaanisqatsi, and then the last film in the trilogy is called the Koyaanisqatsi, and the second film kind of translates to a life in transition. It's as technology is taking over, right? And so you kind of have a life out of balance. We're kind of figuring out what are we going to do with this technology. It seems like the second film is like, hey, look, this is happening, so we just got to kind of get there. And I believe it goes a lot more into the humanity aspect. The third one translates to life is war.
Oh boy!
And
wow!
Like, to be alive is to be at war.
Interesting.
And that came out in 2002.
Yeah, that's
really?
right.
Yeah,
that's right.
And that's the one that had that guy
very relevant,
Steven Soderbergh.
To that time.
Soderbergh? Yeah. And so I'm really intrigued to see how the series evolves in that sense, right? Because I feel like that's exactly where I would see it going. Where, as you said, right now it'd be with kind of where everything is at in the world. If we see something like this now, and especially I think that we kind of are on the cusp of that kind of new frontier of technology as well. Like it kind of, I feel like from the passing of the millennium, that kind of like 2000 till around about now, the last 2 or 3 years, while we did have big jumps in technology, it kind of, it's not huge.
It's a whole different game now.
Yeah, you look at like the iPhone in like the early 2008 or something, it came out, and it's like, okay, cool, and the new one, yeah, it's much better, but like, it's pretty similar. It wasn't that jump to like, holograms and shit that we kind of expected. But at this point where we're going, okay, AI is happening, it's here. It can like write code for itself in ways that are much, much faster than any of us can. And continues to like evolve and improve itself. It's like that is absolutely going to snowball. And what the next 10 years looks like for us, I think, is going to feel insanely different at the end of the next decade, or this time 10 years from now. It's going to feel like an insanely different universe than it does right now, or how it has felt for like my entire almost 30 years of being alive.
I think it's the closest that our generation can come to the advent of the internet. Yeah. Like the idea of like that for like our parents, like the internet wasn't like it became a thing.
They had no comparison.
They had no comparison beforehand.
Yeah.
And for us, it's like we've never really known the world without it. So it's a thing that's kind of like.
Well, I think I was poor so.
Fair, but it's sort
and
of
I had very slow dial-up, so I basically
exactly. So
I didn't know what it was like.
Basically
not all of us had lawyer parents.
Exactly.
We're like, yeah, we had dial-up. Keegan's like, we were on a satellite. I'm kidding. I don't. Not accurate at all.
Wild assumptions.
Yeah,
and like wild ass assumptions right now. But the thing is that. What I think is very fascinating about that, and as you're saying, like Naf, I think that this would have to be about like, and Parks, you said something very interesting. I don't think that people could afford to feel neutral, and that's such an interesting idea because I have noticed that with a lot of filmmakers where you do feel a sense of urgency to be, I need people to understand this because maybe I can do something, maybe my words can matter. And but I think that would be I feel like that would be this, but I do think that it's going to be an off the wall weird comparison.
Go for it.
But it kind of reminds me of the you would need to do something more akin to like the Bo Burnham internet song. Like I think it would have to be more akin to Bo Burnham's Inside, where it's a very complex view of humanity, where it is this idea of like even the song like White Woman's Instagram, like the whole idea of being like, oh, it's all these things that you're so used to seeing, but then it's also talking about the fact that she loses her mom at a young age and that mom's no longer with her, and it's like it makes you feel like an asshole for judging this post because you don't know this person. And I think that that's kind of what you would have to do with this, because I think that that's the key thing, is especially if anything, I think, and not to just be a contrarian or things there, but I think it would be vastly important to maintain that neutrality. I would agree with you that I don't think it would, but I think that it would not be what this is if it didn't have that. Because I think it would kind of lose its identity if it. I see what you're saying completely. It's one of those things where I'm more like, I feel lesser filmmakers would pick a side, but I think this would need to be now it can have peaks and valleys. And I think that's what it would do more so, where I think you would see a lot more of the good, and the good would be a lot more pronounced and bold. But then I think obviously the atrocities would likewise be. I definitely think the internet would have a very large section of being like, because I think it is crazy that I can go onto the computer, type in right now, and I can watch everything. Our lives. I can go and look up. I can look up pictures of puppies, or I can go watch someone fucking war happening in front of me. Like it is so, and it's at the touch of a button. It has no feelings. It has nothing there. It can either connect us or it can destroy us. And I think that that's what the film would have to kind of capture. Is that, again, that contradiction of what humanity is. So I think that that's the thing. Great point.
Yeah. I love the connection to Inside as well. Like, I think that that's a really great tie-in. And
can I make a quick comment about that?
Please.
I almost put Inside on my cinema a la carte. So it is surprising to hear you guys talk about it, because I was like, it's going to be such a weird sell, but no, it's awesome that it was inherent. You guys thought of it. So love that.
It's funny, like you saying that it's like
it's such a different movie, but it has such a similar.
It is more akin to this movie that, like, I put them in cinema categories where I'm like, Inside is a journey. It's not really a movie. It is what, like, if I were to have kids, it's if they were to ask me like what was like the pandemic like, I would show it to them. I would show it to them not as a thing of like, oh, factually, this is what it was like. I'm like, this is how it felt. And that's what I think stuff like this movie does, is it's not so much giving you it's giving you a feeling. It's giving you something that's like that. I don't know. Naf, what do you think?
Well, you stole my point.
No,
literally.
No, just say it again.
Word for word.
Sorry, I cut him off, and then we hijacked his whole thing.
Broke my heart. But no, like, yeah, it's exactly that, right? It's like, yeah, the music and the songs are there, and they matter, and they're silly, and they're funny, and they're goofy. But like, to me, Inside, where the real story is visually how it evolved from, you know, the start of his journey and his work, and trying to put that together to the version of him that is bearded and depressed and struggling. And yes, he's getting his art out, but he's also literally covered under his bed with his phone light on, just holding the microphone, singing into it. And it's like, that is the human condition, especially during COVID. But yeah, like, honestly, like a really, really cool connection. It's funny that, like, I found myself thinking of, for cinema a la carte too, films that made me feel how this did. And it's wild to me that, like, Inside and Oppenheimer are two of them that exactly were that, and they didn't resurface until this conversation. You know what I mean? Like, the stuff that I put on cinema,
I wasn't even thinking Inside, and now I'm like, oh,
incredible.
That's exactly what I should have been thinking.
But the other thing I was going to add too is that it was funny that you say, Parks, around one, our reaction to you recommending this film, and two, that Inside was going to be on there because it's kind of like a weird sell. It doesn't seem like it would sort of like fit in that sense. And what I found particularly this season was really funny. A few weeks ago, we had one of our friends, Cal, on talking about Jujutsu Kaisen. And he was talking about that was the movie, Jujutsu Kaisen 0. And he was talking about how it was the most absurd thing ever to be going, oh, there's a film podcast, and haha, we should talk about my anime film. And that our reaction was like, yep. And he's like, no, like, you're kidding. And we were like, no, like, come talk about the anime film. And to have that space to go, like,
we're calling your bluff.
Yeah, like, we can talk about this here. Like, there's everything's here. Everything's up for grabs. There isn't a thing awesome. That doesn't fit. You know, that's one of the things that we were talking a little earlier around what we feel kind of makes us like special, and it's like that. You know, like anything is here. Like this film, in the one with the filmies later or early next year, is going to go up against Shawshank Redemption for Film of the Year. It's like we're gonna they're there.
Twilight New Moon. I just want to.
And Twilight New Moon.
Twilight New Moon.
And Jujutsu Kaisen 0.
And Koyaanisqatsi, like this movie and that, it's just insane to me. Just fucking like the fact that is like, it's truly trying to think about it.
I have 4 moods.
It is like I have 2 wolves inside of me, and it's just like it's that is the vibe. But
awesome.
And that's
so awesome.
And so great point, Snap, all around. And speaking of cinema a la carte, should we transition into it?
Yeah, let's do it. Love transitioning.
All right. Absolutely.
Never mind. It came out wrong.
I get it. I
am an ally, however.
Absolutely. But if you have something to say, bud, there's no shame here. We're here for your journey.
On one with the film.
Absolutely.
So
I missed the joke. No comment. Brain was off for 3 seconds.
This is Parks was buffering while Matt, Nap, and I have brain rot mind meld.
Yeah,
and that's like that is where I was about to say that is where host and guest differs. Like there are just those occasional moments where the iceberg comes, and it's just like, yep, there we are.
My name is Iceberg.
There we are. I got it.
Cinema a la carte. We always love to wrap up with a little game of cinema a la carte. And as a reminder, this is where we get to show you guys the best way to experience this film through the metaphor of food. We've each prepared a menu of our own, with this week's film as the main course, along with an entree to start, a wine to pair, and a dessert to complete your journey. And you guys get to decide which set menu you love the most, so be sure to let us know in the comments. Now, Kay, do you want to go first?
Well, I'm so glad you asked, Naf. My wonderful cinema a la carte is less so a traditional cinema a la carte and more about a journey that starts with a single question, which is a journey a la carte, which the question is, what was in those brownies? And that's the theme that we start off with. So we're going to start off with, as this feeling is setting in, as you realize, oh, I ate the wrong brownie. You're going to want to start off with Blade Runner 2049 because lots of pretty colors. Lots of pretty colors and a good story to go along with it. Some great acting, some great things, but mainly pretty colors. And so you're going to start there, and then you're going to follow that up with our main Koyaanisqatsi. and then as you're starting to lean into that music and that track, and you're really going for it, and you realize, oh, the movie's over. It occurred. And you're gonna pair that with a wine of Terrence Malick's A Hidden Life. Where because nothing hit Terrence Malick only hits as good when you are a little, and so all I'm saying, and I said what I said, and A Hidden Life is a great one of just wonderful images of the Swiss Alps, but kind of similar to Koyaanisqatsi is it really, I cannot get this right.
Literally,
there's going to be a
here's how you get it right.
You got it right when you were imitating exactly how they said it.
That's what I was gonna say. It's like, so you just say it like that without the voice and without singing.
Give him credit. It's a hard word. Like, it's not you know.
You picks literally, and I'm like, my dyslexia is trying to read it and sound it out and be
it's
like.
The nemesis of the white people tongue, you know, like it just.
I was going to say, I'm like, shit, every now and then again, I get reminded that I'm white. And
I don't
then
think
I'm
it's
just
that hard
like,
to say, guys.
It's shut up. And so like
not gonna look at that any further. Just gonna
not gonna look into it. I'm gonna take that one as face value. And so, but the thing is that what I think about A Hidden Life, what I think about these films that makes them comparable is the fact that Hidden Life is all about the choice of one man in the Alps to no longer fight in the Nazi regime. And but in a very Terrence Malick way, we see all of the scenes that typically you would skip over, and all of the ways that like his family suffers, and all these like little things there where it kind of is the consequence of a choice. And I think that it's very much is a spiritual pair with this film. It's hard to say that it has a narrative, but it has more of a narrative than the film we watched. So it is definitely going to pair together well, but I do think that it is in the same spirit of this is a film that is kind of just more imparting things onto you. And then as the brownie is sort of starting to work its way through your system, you get to the fun part where you follow up a dessert with the Secret Life of Walter Mitty as the ending of kind of talking about life in more exactly. And so you think about it in just the more beautiful way of how life can be when you kind of get outside yourself, when you give yourself a chance to explore, and perhaps again in that idea of the theme of this film, which is you see a way that perhaps there is a different way to live. And I think that this film kind of concludes with that. So just as a reminder for the what was in those brownies, you're going to start off with Blade Runner 2049, going on to Koyaanisqatsi, and then you're going to go into Hidden Life, and then the dessert of Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Now, Parks, hit us with it.
All right. Okay. So you're going to start off with an appetizer at this particular establishment that we're eating at. And you mentioned cinema a la carte. Well, the appetizer is a little bit about appetizers unto itself. And it's not even technically a movie, but you'll follow me here. The first episode of season 3 of The Bear, because it is an episode that is edited. I mean, there's dialogue in there, but it's not the focus. Naf gets it. Naf is on the same wavelength as me right now. It's like 30 plus minutes of just this one track from what's his name? Atticus Ross, you know, 9 Inch Nails, just kind of looping for like 30 plus minutes. And you're seeing kind of the main character, Carmi, his life kind of, you're flashing back and forward through time, like past is occurring at the same time as the present. For me, it's the only other piece of media, maybe not the only other piece of media, but it's like the first piece of media I can think of after Koyaanisqatsi that's like edited in that kind of style, where it is, we are putting a lot of stock in like 3 things: the imagery, the editing, and the music. Everything else doesn't matter as much. Mind you, The Bear, it's a character-driven show, so what they're choosing to show imagery-wise about Carmi matters there. But if you really like this editing style here and this idea of editing to the music, I feel like that episode represents it pretty well. And just a quick note as well, mentioning just a quick little side tangent that I just have to say in this podcast. What you mentioned earlier, Naf, about them recutting this movie to the music. Really fuck with that, especially as someone who edits that way my own videos. Music goes in before I put any video in, and then video is then cut to the music. So I love that, and that's probably an even bigger reason why I vibe with this film.
Definitely.
Your other dish here, your main dish, other than Koyaanisqatsi, is a little movie you might have heard of called James Cameron's Avatar, because Avatar, I think, shares a very similar environmental message and kind of envisions maybe like a race of people who do maintain a life of balance and do find balance with nature. And the antagonists of that film are humans looking to kind of do what we did to the planet in Koyaanisqatsi. Now, that being said, you know, James Cameron, when I mentioned earlier about if Koyaanisqatsi was made today, might not have as neutral a point of view. It might be more aggressive or leaning about its stance. I think about James Cameron, especially in that. If he made a movie like Koyaanisqatsi today, would be very aggressive, I think, and very aggressively in favor of, you know, natural forest preservation, ocean preservation, and being like, hey, we humans are the problems. We need to work on that. But yeah, Avatar, there you go. If you really connect with the message of Koyaanisqatsi, you'll see that in Avatar. And then a dessert here, a take-home dessert, I would say, is a film by Lucretia Martel, one of her first movies, actually, called La Ciénaga. This is another movie I watched in college around the same time as Koyaanisqatsi. Very different movie. But it is a narrative movie that to me is kind of shot like a documentary. It is mostly focused on this one like Argentinian family, I think, kind of living in their house or around their family home. And it's kind of a film where nothing happens. Again, similar to Koyaanisqatsi in that sense. But
my kind of movie.
But being that it's a film where nothing happens, the nothingness is what the movie is about, where it is kind of interrogating why nothing happens when there are things in this environment with this family where action is needed and yet nothing is happening, where there's dysfunction occurring and yet nothing is happening. It's a film about apathy, I guess is a better way of putting it. I connect to it on a very personal level with how I was raised and the sort of environment I grew up in. So, yeah, there you go. There's your cinema a la carte. No crazy Koyaanisqatsis in there this time, but that's
all right. So, just rattle it off for me from the top again. So,
yeah, so you got The Bear season 3 episode 1. I think that episode, it's called Tomorrow, I think is the name of the episode. Then you got James Cameron's Avatar, and then you got Lucretia Martel's La Ciénaga.
Amazing. Yeah, cool. La Ciénaga really sounds like something I'm going to enjoy, so I've added that to my watch list. That could be tonight's cup of tea after The Penguin. I
gotta watch it too.
So good. It's so good.
I actually imagine that being something that you would make a video on too. Just from what I've like seen so far, I'm like, it's so
truly
coming right up.
In 5 months,
we got when
Premiere stops crashing.
Just go ahead.
Hang on, let me just order my army of elves to get to work on that one.
Yeah,
I would happily be one of those army of elves.
Well, I mean, I see one in the closet. It's currently trying to get out. But
talk about me like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That one.
Don't do it. So my cinema a la carte is titled A Trance You Can Taste, and we are on a little bit of a different vibe. So one of the things that stood out to me a lot in the film, naturally, funnily enough, I don't know why, but just with me in particular, the score, kind of a big thing in this movie. So I was thinking about movies that made me feel with their music and their visuals. They're like, it's those two things. So they're not necessarily in the same vein as like what it's about. Like we were talking about, like, for example, Inside before. I'm like, it's not that kind of thing where it's like, oh, it's a similar feeling. It's like, these two things are what I connected. So we start with Damien Chazelle's First Man. I think the score by Justin Hurwitz, the visual aesthetic of this film is fantastic. It is also very similar to something like La Ciénaga. Like in some parts, it's just kind of like a guy living his life. It's not a heap that's happening, but at the same time, I think that the tie into Koyaanisqatsi, it shows what we are capable of, like the peak of humanity, and that even somebody who's struggling heavily can still like achieve
it,
like what the height of humanity looks like. That literally is the furthest we've gone. Like
it's also about like one of the most sort of probably transformative eras for our country technologically that would have inspired Koyaanisqatsi. So there's a great connection there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, the Koyaanisqatsi ends with like a rocket exploding, so.
So I feel like from there you go into Koyaanisqatsi and you see kind of what came before there, what's come in between, and where we could kind of end up if we don't sort of do something about it. Like we're off to that next frontier. We're going to do it, but are we going to go to another planet and just like this? Like, are we going to get to Mars and just like find water there and then ruin the planet? Like, probably, but maybe we could not do that. That could be.
That's the plan.
Well. Originally, I had in there Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. That's my favorite film of all time, and I feel like very trance-like watching it because it does do a lot of, like you were saying with that bear episode, that back and forth timing, and it's very clever in its edit, and the music is very subtle, but it's like it's a feeling. That movie is a feeling. In talking about films before, the other one that came up, Oppenheimer, I think is potentially a better pairing as a wine. It still has that same style of editing like we were talking
Mm.
about, but then it has a lot more of that visual language, and the music is very prominent in that, where it's not as prominent in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. It's still solid and great, but it's huge in Oppenheimer. So either of those could be your wines. You can take a white wine or a red. It's fine. For
Ooh,
dessert,
that's a good idea. It's a red or white wine.
for dessert,
Beautiful.
we have Ari Aster's Midsommar. Again, just visually
Interesting.
and audibly fascinating. A trance-like film. It's a psychedelic film. She's tripping balls the entire time, and you're there for the journey. Yeah, like we experience a character. We're watching a character experience their grief, and then if you do follow the cinema a la carte, you kind of get the height of what humanity can do. Koyaanisqatsi and Oppenheimer, I think, toy with we could go either way here. We could bring about the end of the world, or things could go really well. And I think Midsommar kind of leans into the like devastating nature of humanity, where our capacity for horrific things are, even if they come from chasing something good. You know, like the people in the village in Midsommar aren't inherently evil people. Like when they talk about cycles and life and giving back, I'm like, they got a point here. I should jump off a cliff. So like, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
so from the top,
environment here after all.
from the top, we have it's called a trance you can taste. We have First Man as our entree, our appetizer. We have Koyaanisqatsi as our main. We have a glass of red in Oppenheimer, a glass of white in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and then for dessert we have Midsommar. Those are my choices. So guys, let us know which one you like the most. Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And if you have your own, you can let us know as well. But thank you so much for listening today, whether it's been in the live stream or you're listening on demand. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much, Parks, for coming back again.
Absolutely.
As well. We love having you here.
It's so fun. So much fun coming on here.
Yeah.
A man after our own art. And that's...
So again, guys, I'm Naf. You can find me at Seen by Naf or across the One with the Films podcast pages. And Kay, where can people find you?
Absolutely. You can find me at Movie Man Opinions, pretty much anywhere on social media. And we got a lot of really cool stuff coming down the pipe. We were just talking with Parks about a couple of things that we can't disclose here, but nonetheless, we're very excited. But Parks, where can people find you? What was that? I'm a little tease.
You are.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can find me on YouTube.
If you look towards the western sky. No, wicked reference? Wicked reference? Nobody? Okay.
I wanted to see it last weekend, but the theaters were packed, man. I'm sorry. I couldn't.
I'm glad we're ending this call here. And that's
all right.
It was okay. But no, Parks. Please.
You can follow me on all the socials at Parks Harmon. That's Instagram, Blue Sky now, Twitter, and I'm trying to get off Twitter.
Yeah.
And you can also follow me on YouTube at Artor. I actually have some new videos coming out this month. That's videos plural, assuming life is a little forgiving this month. Yeesh. So if you want to see me talk about Rogue One, a Star Wars story, and you want to see me do a little edit, a little no commentary, no script edit of the Clone Wars that may have a track from Koyaanisqatsi in it, go check that out on my channel this month. So
talking dirty to me. Gosh.
This video is for now.
This. Hey.
No, but as you guys know, if you listen to the last episode,
like the second cousin. I'm not even your kissing cousins. And so,
but yeah, if you guys listen to our last episode where we had Parks on, you would know that both Kay and I are huge fans of this guy and his work and his videos and the amount of quality that goes into it. It's like the ideal kind of content that we love to see. There's like video documentaries. Yeah, there's lots of effort, lots of love that goes into it.
Truly. I mean, Naf and I again have often talked about both on mic and off mic. Your Jurassic Park video that you made last year just
that
truly
comes up in conversation for us like way too often.
Way too often. Like it is a moment to just again to give you your flowers, my friend, because just truly again it's your art speaks volumes. It's just. If y'all haven't watched Parks's Jurassic Park video, it is not just a video about all the facts that you kind of already know about Jurassic Park. It is so much more than that, and it delights you at every turn with making it about the relevancy. I won't spoil what it actually is about. I think that's the beauty of the journey of the piece. It really surprised me when I watched it. And just truly, like, guys, obviously, if you like us, you're gonna love parks, and so
you guys are so
check
nice.
out
Thank
all
you so much.
well, because listen, you're a very humble guy. You're not going to say it. Let us say it for you. Like, truly, it's this guy's awesome, and the work is incredible, and it's a lot of work to do what he does. Please support it. It's incredible. So much of his films have gotten me through some very difficult times. A lot of your videos, and I've said this before, are in my comfort videos playlist. So truly. Right, absolutely. So just with all that said, guys, we are so happy to be here right now. We are currently actually figuring out what is on the weekly watch list for next week. So this is going to be a little bit of fun that we're going to be joining up with that. But nonetheless, as a final reminder that you can find all of our social media and all of our links to our individual pages in the description below. And there's even a Google form that you can fill out if you have a specific creator or film that you would like to see on the podcast. And you also can find one of the films on Instagram, TikTok, and all your favorite podcasting platforms. So thank you all, and have a wonderful night.
Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you next time.
Absolutely.